Hi, look at the camera. I'm Lowell Joseph Gallin, and I am here with our guest for today's interview, Shoshanna Harrari. Shoshanna, thank you for being our guest on the show today.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to be here.
And I'm very happy to do this first interview with Shoshanna because in April 2004 I was diagnosed with a hernia. And I had the choice what to do about that hernia. Have an operation. I went to Shoshanna. And I went on Shoshanna's diet. And I've never stopped being on Shoshanna's diet, and I add what I learned from Shoshanna, who is a healer and a natural foods expert. And there are very few people who are really an expert. Shoshanna is an expert, and I'm very happy to be her student. And I've supplemented what I learned from Shoshanna with on-the-job training, learning myself, and have never looked back. Now I want to show you some of Shoshanna's books. We'll have all the links in the description accompanying the interview, so you can go out and buy them. This, first of all, music, Tfilat Haderech, Traveler's Prayer. Shoshanna and her husband make harps, handmade harps. This is music that they've recorded. Then a book, Shiv'at Haminim, the 7 species of Eretz Yisrael, magical, power-filled fruits and vegetables that you want to get into you. And then we have a book, The Garden of Spices, Recipes for Life, a cookbook by Shoshanna. Shoshanna, from your immense store of wisdom, what would you like to begin to share with our viewers today?
Okay, so first of all, today is a very special day. It's the fast of Esther, Tanit Esther. And so today, that's what I've been really thinking about, the whole story of Esther, and how amazing it was that she, as a single person, of course she had a lot of support behind her, which is very important, but she actually was able to change the fate and help the people of Israel save their lives, this whole area, which was huge at the time, just by her courage. And so I thought about it, like in the story it says, before she went in to see she didn't want to do any of this. She really, really didn't want to do any of this, but she knew that it really, really came to her. And one thing that I connect with is that we all have very, very important things to do in this world, and we just have to get up and do them, even though everybody else is not doing it. Because it may be that it's your tafkid, it's your job in this world to do something very special. And in order to do that, you have to kind of follow in the pattern of Esther. And what is that pattern? Is that it says she put on malchut before she went in to see the king.
Let's add a footnote here. Shoshanna is referring to the upcoming festival of Purim, which around the world and in Israel is this coming Sunday. In walled cities, or what was once classified as a walled city, in Jerusalem we have Shushan Purim, which we celebrate on Monday. And today is the fast of Esther. So please continue.
So it says she put on malchut and she went in to see the king. Well, what is malchut? I mean, I'm sure she had access to many beautiful clothes, but besides looking as good as she could, which I'm sure she did, she put on this courage. It's like, if I perish, then I perish.
So malchut, kingliness, your understanding from the text was she became courageous.
She became courageous and she became humble, and she betul, she negated herself. Like
she was willing to die.
She was willing to do whatever was necessary to do this because it all rested on her shoulders and no one else could do it. And so she did. And the one request she had for the people of Shushan, for the Jews of Shushan, was, please fast for me. Please do this for me.
Which is why we have the fast today.
That's right. But the real story that actually happened, we celebrate Purim, which is when the people eventually were saved through this act of hers. But the real story of Purim, the story of when it actually happened during Pesach. It was the first 3 days of Pesach.
Oh, it's not what we celebrate as Purim and Shushan Purim. The actual events occur a month later.
The story occurs
during the festival of Pesach, Passover, which is the first of the 3 biblical pilgrimage festivals, the Shlosh Regalim. You have Pesach, Passover, followed by 7 weeks later by Shavuot, Pentecost, and in the fall, Tabernacles, which is Hebrew name is Sukkot. So the events of the Purim story in old Persia 2,600 years ago, more or less,
yes,
occurred during the time period of the biblical festival of Pesach. I didn't know that. That's fascinating.
And that's really interesting because it says absolutely you should never fast on Pesach, and the entire community did it because this was what was required.
It was life or death.
It was life or death, and they weren't going to have another Pesach if they didn't do it, and they did. And the reason that we celebrate it now, in a month before, is because really it was almost the whole year that they cast the poor, or the lot, like a kind of gambling in a way. Haman threw out this thing, and that's the day he came up with, which is coming.
What Shoshanna is referring to is that Haman, one of the ministers of the king of Persia, Ahasuerus, wanted to destroy all the Jews of Persia, men, women, and child. And she's referring to lots that were cast. On which day would the extermination, his final solution for the Jews of Persia, take place? And Shoshanna is saying that the date the lot showed was during the period of Passover.
No, the lot was cast during Pesach.
It was cast during Passover the decree.
But the date that he came up with was now.
So the decree of extermination was
like
done
11 months later.
A year earlier.
No, later. Later. Like the thing happened at Pesach.
Right.
Pesach, whatever, some year. And then that's when they found the date that they were going to do it, which you have to keep following the calendar. And it went around until it was 1 month before the date. Doesn't matter.
Let's
anyway,
say
the
ones in January of 1942, the Nazis have the Wannsee Conference. 1 month later, Reinhard Heydrich, who was Heinrich Himmler's deputy, is assassinated in Prague. And that was to determine the final solution to their Jewish problem. It seems a lot of people have problems with which the final solutions, two-state solutions, all sorts of people regard this as a problem that needs a solution. But actually, you know what? To all of you out there around the world, that's your problem. We don't need your solutions. So what Shoshanna is saying, that the Wannsee Conference of Old Persia, led by the Reinhard Heydrich of the day, Haman, minister to the king, was during Pesach, and the date chosen for the extermination was 11 months later, which is
now,
what
Purim.
We celebrate in a few days.
Very good.
When it didn't happen,
it.
The tables were turned on Haman,
right.
And he ends up hung from the gallows.
That's right. So, the thing that is one of the beautiful things in this particular story is the idea of turnarounds. That, like, a lot of times people come to me and, they're very sick or they have so many problems, and I say, look, there's a time coming, this very special time, which in a way is spring, but it comes out to be Purim. It's the time of turnarounds. That what looks like it's going in one direction can actually very much at that point have the energy to turn itself around and go in a really good direction.
So this is an inspiration. This festival is a inspiration for all humanity, no matter how bad our situation is or seems to be. The blade could be on the neck, as the Talmud says. Never give up. It ain't over till it's over, as Rabbi Yogi Berra said. And this is what Shoshanna is saying. Until speaking to you now today, Shoshanna, I had no idea, I never learned, that the Wannsee Conference of Old Persia took place during Pesach. I never read it, I never heard it. That's fascinating.
Yes. So it puts everything better into perspective, and this is what I was thinking about today because I'm fasting, and I was thinking of Esther and all those people, and there is a power when people do things together. Like the one thing which is really, really amazing in this story is that everybody, the entire Jewish community of Persia, they did it. There wasn't anybody who said, oh, this is stupid, I'm not going to go along with you guys, and all that. They all bound together, and they did it. And that, except Har Sinai, I don't remember another time when we all agreed so well on everything. And so I think this idea of finding connections with each other and helping each other to expand more in love to everyone. Eventually, you have to start with your family. You You have to start with yourself, maybe. You have to say, I'm a worthy person, I'm worthy to be here, and if I'm going to bother to be here, I may as well do good things in this world. And so when you start with that, then other people around you, maybe your wife, your husband, your children, your aunt, your uncle, your neighbors, your town, your village, your community, and the bigger community, and expands out like that, like a pebble into a pool, until everyone understands that really the only way we can go here is through love. Like there isn't any other option now. Love is it. And so we have to find a way, first start with ourselves, to find ourselves at least worthy of having, doing good things in this world, even being alive, and then moving it out. And before you know it, many, many great things can happen that way. That's what I believe. So I'm praying for that today.
That's an incredibly liberating message for Purim. Shoshanna is saying that we have to act together for a common purpose, but that begins with each of us taking radical responsibility each day when we get up to say, what am I going to do today? Not what is Shoshanna going to do, or our friend Larry who's here with us, or what is the man in the moon going to do, or Betty Boop? What am I going to do? Make a list, a doable list, small things. This is one thing I've learned in the last years, and is the basis for my approach with my show. Be specific, keep it personal, and make it simple. And that my approach to promoting Israeli products and services is to do interviews with people all over the country and to show how in a small country the size of New Jersey, with the population density of Singapore, people from many, many, many different ethnic, religious, cultural, and other backgrounds live together, more or less, most of the time, pretty well without beating each other up. And if one looks at the world today, with the mass genocides in Rwanda and Cambodia and the Balkans, aside from the little genocides and endless racial, ethnic, and religious conflicts, Israel today is a beacon just on that basis. This is what I hope to show through my Lowell's Israel interview series that I've begun to do here in the land of Israel. Shoshanna, what else would you like to tell our viewers in this first of what I hope will be many interviews on the road to mental, physical, and spiritual health, because this is your field?
Okay, well maybe you can ask me a question. What would you like to know?
Okay. Of the 7 species of the land of Israel, could you tell us about one of those species and some of its incredible healing properties?
Well, I think the one that they're all beautiful and they're all amazing. The one that I love the most, I guess I just relate to it better, is the pomegranate, the rimon. Interestingly enough, botanically, it's a tree that has no other members of a mishpacha. Like every other tree, like the almonds are related to the roses, and like many different species actually have relations. The pomegranate stands alone. It's as if it came from another planet or something. It doesn't have any other family members on this earth.
Should fruits be eaten with vegetables and other foods, or fruit should be eaten alone? And should they be combined with other fruits, or each fruit should be eaten one at a time?
Well, this is a whole long story. But,
that's a big question.
Yes,
different approaches.
Right. Basically, fruits, at the best, would be eaten more or less with their own little family, for example. There are some fruits, even the pomegranate, which can go with things like apples and things like berries and things like that. They digest well together. They have their own timing. It's mostly timing, because if you eat fruits, which digest quickly, and vegetables, which digest more slowly, or other things like bread or grains, or even if people eat meat or these things, they're going to digest much, much slower. So everything has to come at the same time to be digested in your stomach. It can't like put it off in separate compartments and say, okay, you're later and I'm now. It's like they're all going to go together on the same train, and basically you want them to be compatible so they have a good ride through your intestines, and it's as processed as possible. Because the more,
what do you mean by processed?
Right. So eating is not just putting something in your mouth. Like, you have to know how to work with your body in the form of eating. Like, it's almost an art form or something to understand. Like, first there's the stomach, and then there's the intestines, and then it moves through slowly. Human beings have a very slow digestion. So you want to prepare it before it goes there, because the stomach is missing something that your mouth has.
You mean by juicing, for example?
No, I mean by chewing.
Chewing.
Right.
Okay,
So
the
you
key
have
is to
teeth.
chew.
That's right. If you're going to eat solid food, you have to really chew it until it practically is like blended food or almost juice.
So the blender and the juicer's right here.
That's
our
right.
mouths, our
That's
teeth.
right. Yeah, because in your saliva is actually part of your life force. And so as you chew your food more and more and more, you're putting your own life force into your food, which will go back deeper into your body and then finally into your blood cells where you can become stronger by being nourished. But most people, this is statistics, that the way they eat, which is like gobbling it down, really quickly, not paying attention, reading a book, looking at the computer, yelling at their sister or whatever, you know. Most people are not processing their food, and so it goes down into the stomach unprocessed. And so they get something like 3 to 20% of their meal actually goes in and becomes their blood or their organs.
So remember,
Crazy.
when Mom and Grandma say chew your food, they're right. And when you have fruits, eat them alone, and preferably from the same family. For example, say lemons
familiar.
and
Yeah.
grapefruits
That's
and
right.
oranges,
Citrus.
or apples and...
Apples and pears. And yeah,
Okay.
things like that.
So, Shoshanna, thank you very much. Let's hope that today's fast, Ta'anit Esther, is the last, and that the Messianic redemption will arrive, and we will, all our fast, as Zechariah says, the prophet Zechariah says, in the end, new beginning of days. The fast days of our religious calendar will all be turned into feasting days. There'll be no more mourning and sadness, and let's hope that that's coming real soon.
Amen.
So Shoshanna, thank you very much for this first of what we hope will be many interviews, and we want to thank our viewers for watching. Thank you.
And I bless you all with joy and peace and a lot of health.
Okay, thank you very much.